ask a question before we get started about the agenda?
What's up?
The consent agenda, since this is a special meeting, we don't really have anything that we're consenting. Is that correct?
Correct. We only have the one public hearing. Everything
Okay.
else gets bumped to December.
We'll have a couple of announcements also.
Okay. Okay. It's almost time. Okay, I think it's time to call the meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Forest and Beach Commission for Wednesday, November 17th, 2021. And can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Burling?
Sarah, you're muted.
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Cadell?
Here.
Commissioner Myers?
Here.
Commissioner Sowers?
Here.
There you are. Okay. And Chair Mosley?
Here. Public appearances. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern, not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comment shall be limited to 3 minutes as otherwise established by the chair. Matters not appearing on the agenda will not receive action at this meeting and may be referred to staff. Persons are not required to provide their name, and it is helpful for speakers to state their names as they may be identified in the minutes of the meeting. Do we have anyone from the public who would like to make a public appearance?
It looks like it's just us.
Here? Okay, we'll move to announcements. Are there any announcements today?
I guess I'll take a stab at it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I see your hand. You moved around on my screen.
That's okay. Well, thank you. Two things. First of all, we wanted to introduce a new assistant planner in the community planning and building department. That's Saray Nathan. He's here today. So hopefully we can see him and he can wave hello. There he is. Welcome, Saray. The second thing is we don't have a topic on the agenda called future agenda items like we usually do, but just there has been some discussion over the past month about benches that were on the scenic pathway that were approved by the Planning Commission. So that will be coming to you at the December Forest and Beach Commission regular meeting for a discussion. And that's all announcements I had.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay. The consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. And today we have no actions on our consent agenda. So we will move to public hearings. And the item under our public hearings today is an approval or denial of a tree removal application at the northwest corner of Carpenter Street and Fifth Avenue. Forester Sarah, would you like to give us your report?
Yes, thank you. So we're discussing a vacant, undeveloped lot at the northwest corner of Carpenter and Fifth. It has 5 trees. 2 of the trees are on the neighboring property that will have structural root zones that extend into the lot. And 9 trees are in the adjacent public right-of-way. So a tree removal permit application was submitted to remove 2 oak trees. And in your packet, they're numbered number 12 and number 14. And they're in the interior of the lot, pretty much in the middle. So with that being said, you have in your packet your site layout, and you can see where the trees are in relation to the proposed building. So per section 1748070B2 of the municipal code, the trees proposed to be removed should meet 4 requirements to be found allowed to approve their removal. First, the lot is vacant. Yes, the lot is vacant. The available land of the site not occupied by a significant tree does not practically provide space for development. Yes, since one of the tree is pretty much in the middle. C, a variance to develop in the setback would provide a remedy. That isn't an option either, since there's a pretty large right of way. It's just not practical. And then lastly, a failure to approve the removal of a significant tree would deprive the owner of their reasonable use. So my recommendation is based on those 4 criteria that that the commission approve the permit to remove tree number 12 and 14, require the project to adhere to the structural root zone requirements that are stated in the significant tree evaluation that they've been provided, and require the recommended tree density of 3 upper and 1 lower canopy tree be planted on site. Are there any questions? Commissioner Myers.
Casey?
Thanks.
First, Sarah, when we were on site, it was apparent that there were going to be some other limbs from trees not identified to be removed that looked of significant nature beyond just kind of seems like something that would have been brought to our attention. Is this going to come back, or is this something that should be discussed at this point, or can it be discussed? Just out of curiosity, kind of the process.
Right. The way that the permit application stands, it was just for the removal of the 2 trees. So pruning of a shared tree was not included.
So that would mean that could possibly just come back to your desk then, and for your review and your consideration in a future date?
Since it's a shared tree, I typically ask the neighboring property who the tree is shared with if they approve of the pruning. And if both parties agree, then I issue the pruning permit.
Got it. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Sarah, I can see that I went over to the property and I looked, and I can see that number 12 looked like it was right in the middle and of the lot, and would probably cause, well, they're both kind of right in the middle, but but tree number 14 is kind of at the rear of the property, and I'm wondering, like, has a footprint of the proposed residence been submitted that is going to require that tree to be taken out, or could it be saved and, you know, have deck built around it or something like that?
Yes, let me, let's see if I have, here it is. Let me pull that up for you. And I will share the screen. All right, so what you should be seeing, once I get it in the middle of the screen here, is the proposed layout. Let me zoom back out just a smidgen. There. So the proposed layout, sorry about that. So the proposed layout is the house being here. This would be tree number 12. This would be tree number 14. So the hindrance here is we're on a very busy corner of 5th and Carpenter, and it does have a 4-way stop. If the garage and the driveway was to come off of Carpenter, that wouldn't be favorable. One, it would be removing public right-of-way trees, and number 2, that would be a curb cut that's very close to the intersection. So the only real feasible place to put the garage is towards the rear of the lot. Coming in through the right-of-way in the middle, again, would be rather close to the corner, and could disrupt, again, public right-of-way trees. So the grade of the lot now has the home part as pretty much flat, and then there's a slope down to where the garage could go, which would hide the garage when looking at the front of the house from Carpenter.
Brian, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yeah, so, you know, again, looking at the trees, I mean, again, not that we don't have this issue in general around going on in Carmel in general with oak trees. I mean, the trees look to be in poor health. At least most of the trees in the lot there, specifically the 2 trees to be taken out. I mean, they didn't look great. But I guess my question is on the replanting. I mean, going back to, you know, 3 uppers or 2 uppers and 1 lower. I mean, is there, I mean, again, these people are building look like they're going to be building a fairly substantial home here. So my sense is, given the traffic and everything, they're going to probably want to put in trees anyway to kind of cover up the exposure to the street level. And what do we, I mean, what's the size that we require on replanting? Because, you know, I've seen large oak trees in like 50-gallon, you know, plots be put in, and it's almost like a brand new oak tree. I mean, do we have requirements on sizes that can be more significant than a, you know, a 10-gallon, you know, oak tree replanting?
Typically we request that the tree stock be in a 15-gallon container or in a 24-inch box. So when you're purchasing,
they're small.
Yeah, so when you're purchasing trees in containers and boxes, you're paying for the volume of the root mass. When you're purchasing trees that are balled and burlapped, then you're purchasing the size of the trunk. We can request that larger trees be installed at the time the landscape goes in. However, it takes additional time for those trees to be established. So the traditional rule of thumb is for every inch of trunk diameter, you're spending a year getting that tree to be established. So you're spending a year of watering fairly often to get that tree to move into the growth state. So every inch you go up, you're adding on a year. So if we're putting in a tree that's 4 inches and rather substantial, you're going to be babying that tree for 4 years. And you get an instant tree, but you're also actively caring for a longer period of time.
Okay.
Anyone else? JC?
Yes, as a follow-up to Commissioner Sowers, it's perfectly acceptable that the homeowner or the builder or homeowner, whoever it is, chooses to plant the larger tree if they deem fit. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, it appears that the applicant is here, and we also have representatives of the planning department. You may want to
Yes.
allow the applicant to make some comments and then bring it back to the commission.
Okay. Would the applicant like to make some comments for us?
Sure. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I had a bad passcode link, and so I was listening on my phone to the beginning of the meeting. The site was studied fairly extensively to try and come up with ways to preserve the cluster of trees at the bottom of the lot, or at the lower end of the lot down Fifth, farther away from Carpenter. But everything that was discussed earlier kind of points to, both the preservation of the right-of-way trees and the general topography of the lot, trying to reduce the massing of the structure close to the neighbor's patio. They have a small outdoor patio that abuts the lot facing south. And so we really didn't want to put a two-story portion there, like if we had a garage underneath, and then put another level above that. And so it seemed like everything was kind of pushing us towards that was that position where the garage is, down on what you're seeing on that elevation on the left side, as the most viable place. And of course, as you've discussed, the health of those, the general health of those trees is not spectacular at that spot. So I'm sure I can't speak for the developer owner on the project, but as far as planting a larger tree to bring in as a starter tree, as Sarah was mentioning, the watering requirements are so much more severe, and with our drought situation, it might be better to have that smaller tree, let that mature, and also not bring in a larger tree that may not take and die, in a short period of time if it doesn't acclimate to the site well. So I think the smaller trees tend to, have a good starting point to get a hold and take off for a good long life.
Thank you. And from the Planning Commission, does anyone want to speak to this?
Marnie, did you have anything to add?
I do not have anything to add, but thank you.
Yes, Darlene, you might want to ask if the commissioners have any questions for the builder.
I'm sorry, I'm muted. I'm unmuted. Where were we? Okay, so Marnie didn't want to add anything to it. Do we want to bring it back to the commission, or do we have any other questions?
Do we need to solicit for public comment or public question before we bring it back?
Sure. If there is anyone from the public here, if anyone's arrived from the public, if anyone wants to make a comment, please let us know. No. Seeing none, do we want to bring it back to the commission for discussion or a motion?
Sounds like a good idea. I can go ahead and start. Having reviewed the plans for this property and then spent time on the property, listening to the forester's opinion of the general health of the cluster that is where the carport is. I mean, or car garage. I certainly am of the opinion that the removal of both of the trees being requested seems like a reasonable request. That's my opinion. Yep.
So are you making a motion to that?
Well, I think probably others might want to weigh in before, but maybe not. I don't know.
Mike, would you like to?
Sure, I agree. It's a tight site located on the corner with the stop signs right there. It's difficult. I went by, looked at it. I mean, I hate to lose the one oak that will be taken out by the garage, but it's not in great shape. And I think overall, it'll actually be an improvement for the current, as to the current situation. So I think it's good and I'm in favor of it. I think it's reasonable. And I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve, that we accept the city forester's recommendation and approve the application to remove trees 12 and 14.
Or other conditions.
Pardon me?
I second it. If somebody hasn't already, by the time I got it.
All right. Then can we have a vote, please?
Well, I just did a quick question to Commissioner Cadell. Your motion is to follow along the lines of the recommendation of the forester and all three parts of her criteria that she had, correct?
Including the new planning and the maintaining of the correct ratio for upper and lower canopy trees.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So then I take my second away, because I don't think we need to force them to have more trees unless they want to. It's loaded with trees on both sides of the city property, and that's a recommendation. This 3 higher, and they do. If the one oak tree that's half on their property and half on the other people's property, could probably count as one of theirs. To me, that should be up to them, whether they want more trees or not. There's really plenty of trees.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and second then.
Okay, can we have a vote then?
Mike, yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, thanks. One question to the city forester. Sarah, what's your opinion about the ability to add additional trees and maintain the correct ratio? I mean, are we asking them to do something that's unreasonable, or in your opinion, is that something that should be done?
Yeah, so I base my recommendations off of the recommended densities that's in the city code. So for this size lot, the recommendation for density is 3 upper canopy and 1 lower canopy tree. When taking the site into consideration with the existing redwood that's on the lot and the existing redwood that's on the neighbor's lot, and power lines being on both sides of the right-of-way, I think it could be challenging to meet the upper canopy density recommendation in the code, and still maintain the health and viability of all of the surrounding trees. I think 1 additional upper canopy tree would thrive, but again, the recommendation is based on the code.
Do we want to change our motion, or do we want to move forward and vote?
You have a second on it, so I think you probably have to take it to vote.
Okay. I can't hear you, Michael.
I would just say I will vote against my motion given what Sarah just said. And I think it should be voted down, and then we come back with a new motion to accept what I hear is a recommendation for one additional upper canopy tree. And I'd like to ask Sarah though, and is there room, do you think, for another lower canopy tree, or is that too much?
Yes, there is room for ornamental size trees. So our list of lower canopy trees includes things like oaks, which can reach up to 70 feet, which would be interfering with the power lines. So planting additional trees with a mature height not to exceed 25 feet could be planted on the lot on the east and the south sides of the new house.
Okay.
So right now I would say maybe 2.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Casey?
Forrest, Sarah, could you put back up one more time the rendered drawings?
So where I see room for additional large tree is in the back corner, as well as along this side. So possibly a smaller tree around this area, and then another around here, close to the patio.
Thank you. Are we gonna have a vote on the first motion so that we can move on?
Yes.
Okay, so are you going with that motion? Are you changing, are you gonna change it?
We're going to take a vote on that motion, and then we're going to, Michael? You're muted.
To do it would be to just make, if JC, for example, that we modify to hire one additional upper canopy and a couple of ornamental lower canopy trees, working with the city forester, we could do that. But otherwise, we just vote on this one as is and then come back with another motion.
I would recommend you amend the motion and then vote the one time on the amended motion.
Okay.
So
Well,
do I need to make that, or
motion?
so maybe Commissioner Burley wants to do that since it was her.
No, I don't want to. I mean, I would, okay, then I don't think I'm not for having them, telling them how to plant any more trees. So I from what you just said, Michael, it didn't sound like that's what you were thinking.
Okay, so then let me understand if I've got this process. So I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the motion. Is that correct, Bob? And that would be, instead of the requirement for 3 upper and 1 lower, instead to, per the forester's revised recommendation, 1 upper and 1 lower.
And I'll accept that amendment. So that's the motion as amended.
Okay, so you're seconding it? Is that, are you the,
So then JC would have to second that motion.
okay.
Then I'll second that.
Okay.
And can we have a vote then?
Okay. Commissioner Burling,
No,
Commissioner Cadell,
Yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Mosley,
Yes.
with a vote of 4 to 1.
The motion obviously passes with a vote of 4 to 1.
Yes. Okay, the motion passes, and we have no other orders of business, so we have an adjournment. Is that true? All right. So I hope everybody has a fabulous Thanksgiving.
A reminder about the climate workshop tomorrow.
Oh, right.
And it's from 3:30 to 5:30, I think.
3:30 till midnight, probably.
Oh dear.
Do we have a set date for our December meeting?
December 9th,
Thank you.
December 9th.
the second Thursday, the usual time.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Okay, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Have a happy Thanksgiving,
you.
everyone.
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Bye.